Nancy Drew, you are urgently needed to work on a most important and confidential case. Without your help, someone you know may be in trouble. Worried for the safety of her friends, Nancy follows the instructions in the anonymous note, meets a stranger in an abandoned theater, where she learns today's victim is Brenda Carlton. Oh, Brenda, huh? Maybe I should skip ahead to the next book in the series.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
Okay, Brenda's father doesn't like her new boyfriend, so he's hiring Nancy to check this guy out. Because the 1980s Nancy Drew is great at checking guys out, if you know what I mean. Brenda's new flame is Mike McKeever from Miami. Nancy and Ned go to one of his guitar performances and start up a casual conversation. An old guy appears out of nowhere and flips the table, spilling everything on top of Brenda. Uh-oh, is this a weird Brenda Carlton love triangle? Well, let's be honest, any love triangle with Brenda Carlton is weird. Mike McKeever has bad news, because he's using fake motorcycle plates and a false identity. Brenda's dad could probably go to the police right now and have him run out of town, but I guess that would be too simple of a solution. Remember Dirk Bowman, the Fort Lauderdale cop from Book 5? Based on what Nancy says here, she still hasn't told Ned that she kissed Dirk multiple times. Of course she hasn't. Anyway, Nancy calls Dirk and asks him to search for Mike in the local police files. Nancy knows that Fort Lauderdale and Miami are completely different cities, right? Seems kind of weird to search for a Miami beach crook in a city that's an hour away. Still, Dirk promises to help if Nancy can get him a picture of Mike and a fingerprint. Nancy gets a picture of Mike pretty easily, but it is just as easily stolen from her. George gets a photo of Mike, but the old guy returns and he attacks George trying to steal the camera. George ends up with a black eye, and I bet $5 she's gonna lie and tell everybody it was a sports injury, not an old man attack. The girls pose as maids and break into Mike's hotel room to get a fingerprint. Humorously, Brenda is furious when she learns that Nancy was at her boyfriend's hotel. Brenda tries to get revenge on Nancy with a car chase, but she runs a red light and gets stopped by a policeman. Haha, Brenda. You're so incompetent, I don't know why Nancy bothers to keep you as a rival. Nancy meets with one of Mike's former victims, and she gets all the details of the criminal scheme. Here's how it goes. Mike goes from town to town and he seduces rich women. The old guy, he goes to the parents of the girls and he charges them a huge amount of money to ensure that Mike won't marry their daughter. It's sort of like Mr. Wickham in Pride and Prejudice, only the exact opposite. Brenda's father calls in an emergency. Brenda and Mike are sneaking off to an abandoned farm. Mike takes her into a dark barn where nobody can see them. Nancy rushes in to save Brenda, and it's revealed that Brenda and Mike were just making out heavily. Ew. Things take a serious turn when one of Mike's victims turns up dead. Nancy tries to investigate, but she is hindered by a crooked cop who's clearly trying to cover up the murder. When Nancy leaves town, the old guy runs her off the road and almost kills her. Almost kills her, in this case, means that she leaves the hospital the next day with no problems whatsoever, no injuries. She's Nancy Drew, she's fine. She's used to car crashes at this point. Dirk calls with news. The fingerprint has identified the old guy as Felix Frankson, a murderer who is wanted by the FBI. In fact, the FBI is on its way to arrest Felix right now. But Dirk forgets to mention this for some reason. Brenda disappears with Mike and Nancy finds them in the barn again. Nancy watches while Felix and Mike explain their scheme to Brenda. Brenda is shocked. Not because Mike was after her money, but because he's had other girlfriends. She screams, "How could you, Mike? How could you date other girls besides me? Ah!" Oh, Brenda. Nancy picks a really bad moment to sneeze, and she gets caught, but she gets out of danger by tricking Felix and Mike into fighting with each other. While the men trade punches, Nancy leads Brenda out of the barn, even though that's clearly not Brenda's arm on the cover. At this point, the FBI arrests Felix, and Brenda's father threatens to cut her allowance for a year. The book ends with a party at the Carlton family mansion. Brenda lies and tries to pretend she knew Mike was a criminal all along. Then she falls into the pool by accident. The end. Post-book follow-up. Mike and Felix have conned at least 4 different millionaires at this point. How are they still so strapped for cash they can't leave town without Brenda's jewelry? And furthermore, why don't these criminals have a good escape plan for leaving town quickly? You think that'd be essential in their line of work. This is the 3rd book in a row that directly references other books in the series, which means I can finally retire the running joke about this series having no continuity. Hooray! Also, this means I have to take back what I said about multiple book authors in the previous review. This book's authors, Susan and Bill Albert, referenced 6 previous books that they did not write. So either these authors read all of the other books in the series, which seems unlikely, or the editor is starting to slip in little references to other books for fun and profit. The original Nancy Drew series also liked to mention other Nancy Drew books as a way of free advertising. I was happy to learn that Mike does not have a crush on Nancy in this book. See, all of the book's advertising said the hot guy falls in love with Nancy, starting a Brenda and Nancy love triangle. My reaction was, a random hot guy falls for her again? I was very glad to see the book didn't follow that route. I also liked how Brenda was handled in this book. I can't really take her seriously as Nancy's rival because she's too incompetent. It's much more appropriate for her to play the role of the buffoonish victim. It's funny how she messed things up and how her dad complained she's an idiot. Also, it's kind of a change of pace for Nancy to deal with a hostile victim. Overall, this is a very good book. It has its problems, like the first third of the book being a tad slow, but I didn't see much room for improvement. It's a good premise, and it kept me hooked the entire time. I give Nancy Drew Files number 22, Fatal Attraction, a 9 out of 10.